This week, it is with a heavy heart that I review Stuber, and a heavy heart because I was actually kind of excited for this movie. I love Kumail Nanjiani. I love Dave Bautista. I think they're both very funny. I think they're both very talented. There was something about this movie that just did not click. I'm sure part of it's the direction, part of it is the acting for sure, part of it's the writing, but just... And they have a bit of on-screen chemistry, but the whole mix of this movie did not work. Also, just upsetting note, this is a major Hollywood movie that stars two Southeast Asian men, and this was the end result, is so disappointing. The premise is Dave Bautista is a cop. He's working on this major case. Tiny spoiler, but he has to get LASIK, and so he can't drive. And then there's a break in the case, and so he ends up calling an Uber, driven by Kumail Nanjiani, who plays a character named Stu. So Stuber. So dumb. I guess you couldn't call it Slift, so you ended up with Stuber. I'm like, did they pay Uber to use this name? Like, what's happening here? Anyway, hijinks ensue. It's completely absurd because you'd think at any point, any Uber driver in that much danger would be like, cancel ride, get the hell out of my car. But he really needs that 5-star rating, and so he keeps driving him around. It's bizarre. The movie wants to be an action movie, and while it does certainly have a lot of action and way too much violence, the action feels pretty pointless. This movie also just goes to 11 very quickly and stays there, and so it doesn't really take you on a journey. I mean, it does physically, they go around a bunch, but emotionally, they develop a friendship, sure, but it's like over the course of how long? It's just bizarre. The other thing I don't love about this movie is that it basically sidelines the women in it. And not that the women have to be front and center, but there are these weird B and C storylines about how Natalie Morales plays Dave Bautista's daughter. And by the way, Natalie Morales is 34, Dave Bautista is only 50. So they either must have thought Dave Bautista looks way older or that Natalie Morales looks way younger, because then he would have been, 16 when he had her? Just kind of bizarre, but that aside, there's also a plot line involving Stu's friend, played by Betty Gilpin, and how he's just taken for granted, and that just kind of weaves its way and pops its head up plot-wise every once in a while, and just, even as I'm describing it, I'm like, oh, this is ambling and bad. I'm just so disappointed. Like, I like both of them so much, but the film was so awkward, and there were definitely funny moments, but it was not enough to salvage this film. It only clocks in at 105 minutes, and it felt much, much longer. I would really love to see Kumail Nanjiani and Dave Bautista in something else together, something better, ideally, because they do have chemistry, just this movie could not get it together. And it's such a bummer. Like, I'm so bummed. Also, the movie revolves a lot around obviously being familiar with like Uber and the rideshare app culture, and which means it's immediately going to be outdated. Like, there's not that it was ever going to be a classic, but it's so relevant to the times now. But even now, it almost feels kind of outdated. I'm sorry to say, I'm only going to give it 2 out of 5, and that might honestly be being generous. But because I like the lead so much, and they are charming in their own way, and they have moments of shining, it's the only reason I'm not going to give it a lower score. But yeah, Stuber. Oh, such a bummer, but skip it. Just skip it.